In episode 10, June is finally allowed home after months of being in the hospital, and some things have changed. Most notably, the fact that homes in the area are having to conform to DC regulations, and that includes keeping Commander Lawrence's wife away from the medication she needs. So June walks into this new-look Lawrence household, and the first person she sees is the Martha. And the first thing the Martha says to June is, "Scones mean no." Now, June has no idea what she's talking about, and she says, "I was asking the other Marthas around the area to help out Mrs. Lawrence with the medication that she needs, and when they send scones, that means no." But June doesn't care about scones right now. She tells the Martha about her plan to help get kids out of Gilead, and the Martha looks at her and says, "You're going to get yourself killed," but she does agree to ask around. Later that night, June sees Commander Lawrence for the first time in months, and because June's heard the stories about Mrs. Lawrence being off her meds, she confronts Commander Lawrence and says, you could have her out of here. You could call a truck and get her into Canada with the snap of your finger, and you're not doing it, because it doesn't seem like Commander Lawrence has any interest in splitting him and his wife up. But life kind of goes back to normal for June as she heads to the market. And because of the new rules and whatnot of trying to conform to DC, there's a lot more security at the market, so there's a lot less gossiping. But that doesn't stop June. She sees her friend Alma and tells Alma about her plan to get kids out of Gilead. And Alma looks at her and says, Are you nuts? Are you feeling okay? And June says, "No, I'm not feeling okay." But June doesn't get a chance to explain herself because an alarm goes off and all of the handmaids are wrangled up and taken to an open outdoor meeting location. And they're taken there because Commander Winslow is in from DC and Commander Waterford basically just wants to show off his handmaids. But the problem is, Commander Winslow isn't exactly impressed. That's because this area has kind of gone by the wayside with a lot of little tiny details. One of them being that Janine is allowed to have a red eye patch. So it's a lot of little minute details, but Commander Winslow is pointing all of them out. Now, while he's doing this, Commander Waterford goes up to June and mentions her moving to DC. We don't know if this is a threat or if this is a proposition, but June isn't interested in it because it's hard to save the kids of Gilead when you're away in DC. Now, after this display of handmaids, June heads home and asks the Martha where Commander Lawrence is, and he's out for the moment. So June takes it upon herself to start snooping in his office looking for the files of the missing children, but she is caught by Mrs. Lawrence. And Mrs. Lawrence wants to know what she's doing and says, "Are you looking for stuff on your daughter?" And she says, "Actually, I'm looking for stuff on other people's daughters." Mrs. Lawrence says, "Oh, Joseph keeps those files in the basement." And then there's an awkward silence because June doesn't know what to do. And Mrs. Lawrence says, "Well, follow me. I don't have all day." And they go downstairs, and sure enough, it's everything June needs. There's file boxes upon file boxes of all the information on the children of Gilead. What their old name was, what their new name was, medical files, what they look like, where they live, everything that June would need. But it becomes quite clear to June what they were referring to when they said Mrs. Lawrence isn't well, and she tells Mrs. Lawrence, "You could get out of here." And Mrs. Lawrence says, "No, we really can't, because Joseph's a war criminal, and if he leaves, he's going to be hanged. And you know what? He would even deserve it." So that's probably why when June confronted Commander Lawrence, he didn't have much to say. So whether they want to be or not, the Lawrences are stuck in Gilead. And that means Mrs. Lawrence is currently stuck on herbal tea instead of the mood relaxers that she needs because of the DC regulations. So no one's really happy in the Lawrence household currently, except for June, who has those files. And while June combs over those files, Commander Waterford and Commander Winslow, along with Serena, are all having a chat, and Commander Waterford says, "I'm worried about Lawrence." Commander Winslow cuts him off right there and says Lawrence was instrumental in creating this country, and he says, yes, he was, but he's had 4 handmaids, not one of them has gotten pregnant. Something is amiss. Now, we could go over to ensure that he is following protocol, and Serena jumps in and says, "Isn't that a bit much?" Commander Winslow doesn't think so, and says if he can't keep his house in order, how's he supposed to keep this country in order? So they all head over to the Lawrence household, and June is summoned upstairs for her first ever ceremony with Commander Lawrence. Now, this is her first ceremony in well over a year, and this is Commander Lawrence's first ceremony ever. Aunt Lydia lets June know that after the ceremony, she will be inspected by a doctor, and Commander Lawrence, Mrs. Lawrence, and June all head upstairs. Now, initially, Commander Lawrence thinks, all right, we'll just play cards for 20 minutes, we'll go downstairs, we'll tell them we did the damn thing, and then they'll leave. But June says, no, that can't happen, because I'm going to get checked out by a doctor. Unfortunately, we have to do this. And when the reality sets in that the ceremony will go down, Mrs. Lawrence freaks out because Commander Lawrence had told her that he will never have to go through a ceremony. June is hearing this saying, did you really not think that you would have to go through this? I mean, you created this world. And he said every government has exceptions to the rule. Unfortunately for Commander Lawrence, he isn't one of them in this case. And if they don't go through the ceremony, everybody involved is going to die. So while Mrs. Lawrence weeps in the corner, Commander Lawrence and June have to go through the ceremony. And no one seems to really feel great about this, including Serena, who sees that there's something up with Mrs. Lawrence. And when he's about to leave, Fred asks June if she's all right, but June just looks at him and says, at least it wasn't from you, and walks away like a badass. Now later that night, June walks in the kitchen and sees Commander Lawrence, who is drinking, and he tries to give her some birth control, but she says, do you have any idea what the punishment for birth control is? You get ripped apart by dogs. Yeah, I'm good. You can have it. Commander Lawrence then says, if I get you a truck, you have to get my wife out of here. He gets up to leave the room, but June says, you could go too, and you won't even die. You just have to bring them something they want. Bring them the children of Gilead. This seems to really intrigue Commander Lawrence, and he says, yeah, I'd be a hero, and just walks out of the room contemplating this. So as Commander Lawrence contemplates getting the children of Gilead out of Gilead, over at the Waterford household, Serena is pissed because Fred, in her opinion, has gotten distracted from the mission at hand. And the mission at hand is getting baby Nicole back to Gilead. She says, you've been so distracted by getting this promotion to DC that you've forgotten about our daughter who is still in another country. Then she pulls out the phone that was given to her last trip up to Canada and says, I met a person up there. Obviously, this is the person from the American government. And she hands the phone to Commander Waterford and says, all you have to do is cooperate. Now, it's interesting that both Serena and June are telling the men in their life that all you have to do is cooperate with the Canadian government to get your way. The next day at the market, June walks over to Alma and gives her an update on her kid, and she has that update because of the files in Commander Lawrence's office. And this is the first time that she's hearing an update on her child since her child was taken from her. And hearing about her child, it kind of invigorates the handmaids to help June with her mission. And when June gets home to the Lawrence household, the Martha of the house is completely shocked. She says, muffins. Muffins mean yes. June still doesn't know what she's talking about. And she says, I asked around if the other Marthas would help with your mission to get kids out. And look, they all sent muffins. And when I'm talking muffins, the whole table is covered in muffins.